But fishing is like that for a lot of people that have a different life, like your life, your training life, your profession. It's tough, man. It's a violent, tough, disciplined thing. And then you have fishing. And I've noticed a lot of people, like when I was guiding all the time, there would be this guy and he would obviously be athletic, obviously be way into fishing and just love it. And he would become a really good client. And then somewhere along the line, I'd be like, hey, what's your background in athletics? Almost always they had a background in wrestling. These guys that were really good at it and that were really like obsessed with fishing. And I've always kind of wondered, like, why? And I kind of think that, wrestling is a physical chess game. That's the way my wrestling coach always explained it. It's like, this is just a physical chess game. You got to be thinking moves ahead. And fishing is a lot the same way. And I didn't really get like super into fishing until I saw what sight fishing was, where I could see the fish and then I could see where I needed to cast it and I could see the reaction of the fish. And then that's a little more like wrestling, like as opposed to like blind wrestling or whatever. Like this was, once I saw that, it was over for me.
That's you make a good point, Captain. It's funny you mention that because I've been asking myself that for years now, and wrestling and fighting is my passion, and fishing. So I've been like, why am I so hooked on this? You know what I mean? Obviously, right. But I thought about it. I was like, well, to me, I think there's so many similarities between fishing, catching a fish, fighting, and wrestling because it's a very individual sport. All three of them.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. Besides, if you're with a captain or a guide like yourself, you know what I mean, who might help you take you to the fish, but most of the time you got to cast it. Right. You got to, put the bait on by yourself. If you're a man and you want to learn how to be a good fisherman, nothing against anyone other guys out there that don't bait their own hook or whatever. But I believe it's the build up to it, the preparation, finding the fish, and just the entire process, of it. And then you're the only one fighting that fish, you know what I mean? So it's like you've been preparing, you've been thinking about it. And one thing I know too, the other night, because I know before we filmed, I had a hard time sleeping, and the only time, and I could sleep through anything, man, you know what I mean? But I used to always have a hard time sleeping before wrestling tournaments. Yeah. And when I know I'm going fishing the next day, because it's an excitement, I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to be? What in this situation? I'm going to listen to Captain, and you know what I mean? What I got to do here when he tells me to do this? So I'm always kind of, thinking, just preparing myself and being ready for any situation. So that's the closest I can think to why I have such a passion for it, because it reminds me of wrestling and fighting.
I'll tell you what I think is going to happen is I think you're going to learn a little bit more about a couple of different types of fishing, and you're going to really get obsessed with it. Because here's what happens when I found fly fishing, for example, I was horrible at it, right? Terrible. I mean, it's cracking like a bullwhip. It's not supposed to do that, by the way. Okay. When you start and it's cracking like a bullwhip, you're doing it wrong. Okay. And so it's cracking like a bullwhip, and I'm trying to get it out there, and I don't see any way that I can catch a fish. And so finally I start to figure out the cast. And then I start getting better at it. And then I start enjoying the practicing of the casting. And then I start getting better and better and better and better at it. And so now that when I see a fish, I know I can make that cast. And then I start learning from people like Lefty Cray or other people that just like wrestling techniques and different takedowns. And it's like, look, you get with a really good wrestler and you're holding his wrist like this. And he's like, no, hold it like this. And it makes all the difference in the world. Right. And then, so just little details. Yep. And it's like, look, because when you do this, you can get your head under, or you can do whatever. And so you start practicing, and you start practicing other techniques, and you learn how you can make it curve, and you can learn how you can make it do all this other stuff. And then you get as excited about the practicing as you do about the actual
physical
fishing
part of it. Yep.
And same with a spinning rod. Like when you get really good with a spinning rod, you start practicing and practicing and practicing. And then with a spinning rod, like, and fishing for these fish that we have here, like bonefish, permit, tarpon, if you throw it in there with bait the right way, if you do it right, you should get the bite. Like, and what we were doing with the mullet and stuff like that, there's a lot left up to chance. But there's a lot of types of fishing that we do where we stalk the fish. We see the fish before we cast it. You cast it in there, and if you do it right, you should get bit. Now, when you're fly fishing, you can do it right and still not get bit. That's the thing, But that's when it became a complete obsession for me, is that the more practice time I put in, the more preparation I put in, it all paid off, at the moment, and you're not also not getting kicked in the face. Like when you don't do it right, you don't get kicked in the face. And you tend to, it's like, oh, wow, I made a mistake and nothing really happened except I'm disappointed and the guy's yelling at me.
Exactly.
That's an easy day.
You might get snagged, you might lose your bait, you might break a hook, but yeah, you're not getting kicked or punched in the head or something. So, yeah, there's definitely, like I said, a lot of similarities, and that's just what, that's what we're passionate about. Just the challenge, the thrill of the hunt, the whole process, and another thing too, is, trying to find fish when you can't see it. Sight fishing is awesome. I mean, I think it's great because it's like, okay, here we go. We got them. Now we got to catch them. But without the electronics, when I fish in my kayak, it's kind of just going out there and, all right, I'm going to start over here, and I got the little pedals on it. My Hobie cat, I'm going to go pedal to find him. All right, nothing there. I'm going to go halfway across the lake. So I also think that's part of the challenge as well. Is when in hunting, a lot of times you can see most of the times you're going to see what you shoot eventually. You know what I mean? But a lot of times in fishing, majority of the time, you're not going to be able to see the fish under the water, depending on the clarity, the depth, where you're at. You know what I mean? So I think that just adds to it.